Hey everyone, welcome back to Dev Parkour. I'm Brian Parks, and in this video, I want to talk about the other side of defending against cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. So in yesterday's video, we talked about sanitizing inputs, validating your inputs. But in today's video, I want to talk about the echoing, the writing to the response aspect of defending against cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. Basically what this means is, how do you ensure that what you are writing to the screen is not going to be treated as script and is instead going to be treated as, well, I'll just say exactly what you want it to be treated as, because there are some cases where you might want HTML to get rendered. You've built up HTML and you do want that to get rendered. So how can you do that safely? So let's start kind of at the top. The easiest approach to all of this is, well, I guess easiest, right? If you're not already using something like React or Vue or even jQuery, something that allows you to bind text into the DOM as text. If you're not already using a framework like that, then I recommend that you start, because that makes all of it a whole lot easier. If you want to go the single page application route, React, Vue, all those things, make it super easy. If you're in something like, let's say C#, for instance, Razor Pages, you provide this functionality as well. The basic idea is that you write your HTML as HTML, and anything where you want to populate the HTML with something dynamic, something you've pulled from a database, something you've computed from the back end, you encode that in a very specific way depending on the templating language, right? So in Razor, it would be at whatever. In React, it would be curly braces and then the value. In Vue, you'd either bind, v-bind, or yeah, I guess that's pretty much the main way to do it. Even if you're putting something as the text child of an element, it's still recommended to use v-bind. So that's what I would term the simplest way. Basically, put yourself in a position where your template is written as a template, and anything that you want to bind into that template is specifically coded as a reference to some named value, right? Variable, or part of your model, something along those lines. Now, those template languages do provide support for they have different names for it, but something along the lines of unsafely dump raw HTML into the template. And there are ways to do that if you really need that, but they go with a safety first policy. So they go with the making sure that they're only dumping safe strings into the HTML first. And in the case of React and Angular and Vue, there is no, it's not writing HTML out, it's actually constructing a DOM and then saying the text content of this element is blah. So because it's setting the text content and not the inner HTML, that never gets treated as HTML, it only ever gets treated as text content. So that is a safe way to go. The way Razor does it, I believe, is they sanitize some things. So you have to be kind of careful on that front that you don't introduce some weirdness. You can see yesterday's video about how sanitization works and how it's kind of a heavy-handed approach. But Razor Pages, Razor Views do still work fantastically. I use them. I've used them for years and years and years. They're really good. They do what they do really well. Some smart guys worked, and girls presumably, have worked on that technology and made it work really, really, really well. So the next easiest approach is something like making sure that you're sanitizing your outputs. In addition to validating and sanitizing your inputs, making sure that you're sanitizing your outputs so that if something gets into the database, you're not sending script tags, for instance, to the web browser, or you make sure that you're encoding them in such a way that it doesn't get executed as script. So if you know that, let's say, things have been entered into a plain text field, you don't necessarily want to just dump that to the screen, just assuming that it's safe. You can run that through an HTML sanitizer, or an HTML encoder would be better, so that if there's any HTML in there, intentionally, think like something like Stack Overflow, right, where you might actually want to type out some code so that the code is visible. The code is part of the comment or the question or the answer, right? You want the angle brackets to show up as angle brackets. You don't want that to get interpreted as HTML. So you might encode that, make sure that all of those angle brackets get turned into %GT semicolon or %LT semicolon, right? So that when that goes to the browser, it gets rendered as text. Again, it's still HTML, but there's no special HTML in that text to get rendered. And this is actually where we get into trouble with PHP, because PHP by itself does not have, obviously React, Vue, Angular, those are all JavaScript libraries that you could certainly use with PHP, but no backend technology has them natively, because that's not what they are. And PHP natively does not have anything like Razor does not have anything like Razor. Laravel does by default use a templating technology that's very similar to Razor and has some of the benefits that come with that. So you can be a little more trusting that if you just @echo something, then that will get properly sanitized and become part of your page, and that's not an issue. Again, still run something like ZA proxy against it, just to make sure you're not, doing something that inadvertently tricks the templating language. But if you're just using raw PHP, or in my case, I'm using raw PHP with an MVC framework that I built, that definitely does not have any support for a third-party templating language. Side note, I did think about adding support for one, I just never got around to it. Didn't really find one that I really liked, and PHP worked well enough for what I was doing. However, PHP echo does not do any sanitization of what it's echoing. It just takes that string and dumps it into the HTML response. So if you have, a script tag that performs some cross-site scripting and you just echo it to the page, it gets echoed to the page and you have successfully executed a cross-site scripting attack. So in the coming weeks, I do know that there are a few pages in Glassminnow that are vulnerable to cross-site scripting. So in the coming weeks, I'll actually be fixing some of them. In my case, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to start building at least some parts of the UI, rebuilding them in React. There are a few different reasons that I'm doing this, but that'll be the topic of a future video. But because I'm planning on using React, I can leverage the React's native templating so that data gets populated into the template and is treated as text, is never treated as script. And then once I do that, I'll actually, this might be over the course of several videos, just because there's a lot here and I do want to show all aspects of it. But at some point I will rerun ZA proxy. It's free, open source, so I don't have to worry about any free trials expiring or anything like that. But I will rerun ZA proxy against at least that part of the website that I know was vulnerable to cross-site scripting attacks, and show that the cross-site scripting attacks have been resolved. hopefully, fingers crossed. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you click that subscribe button, click that notification bell so you'll get notified when all of the videos that I put out get released, including the ones that I just talked about. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, and be sure to leave a comment down below if you have any other thoughts on this, any questions, any suggestions for future topics. I'd love to hear them. I really enjoy talking to you all and hearing your feedback. So thank you for coming along for the ride, and I will see you next week.